Pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brewer.
Here.
Mr. Babalani.
Here.
Dr. Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Menegini.
Here.
Mr. Pop.
Here. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting of June 6, 2016. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 6, 2016.
Support.
Mr. Babalani.
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer.
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2016-11 in the amount of $235,141.95. Mr. Pop, any questions?
Yeah, I do have one question. Under the general fund, barbed wire fence repair material on a park, where do we have barbed wire fencing on a park?
Mine fence.
Huh?
The mine fence.
Oh, the mine fence is barbed wire?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Does that mean that the Norway Hill area is officially a park?
Well, it should be under buildings and grounds, actually. But
And then we have another one, a 14-foot gate and a 16-foot gate for 125 for Marion. Under the general fund, right above the barbed wire fence for $450. Where are those gates at? Gonna be placed?
I'm gonna have to double
It's
check.
the second page under the general fund.
Okay.
Right at the end of the general fund, it's the second from the bottom. We got a 14-foot gate and a 16-foot gate for 125 Marion for $450.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to double check exactly on those locations. They talked about putting some gates, or doing something with the tennis courts because of the in and out, to control the in and out at that point, but I'll have to double check.
Okay.
Because that looks a little more than just, temporary gating,
Yeah,
you know.
okay. That's it.
Candy?
I have none.
Mr. Babalani?
I got a couple, Doc. Vehicle gas, Ray. I've been watching the DPW and the water department, and this month here, it was $888.48 on a 20-day work month. That's almost $45 a day in vehicle gas, and I believe that's not including diesel, that's just gasoline. And I believe there's only 4 trucks running now with the summer students, and the other ones are running the diesels, the dump trucks and stuff, which that fuel is not involved in this. I don't know how many miles they're putting on, but it sure seems like a lot of miles, just in the public works and the water department.
I'll have to double check, because sometimes those bills get stacked up, but I'll see where,
It says
those
May
mileage are.
on the thing, it doesn't
Right.
say any additional time. Then I have another question here. Being we have 3 service stations for fuel, and we're only using 2, I never see Citgo on there, and they're a taxpayer in the city.
they
so-
refuse to take the tax off the bill. The other 2 are willing to take the sales tax out before they send us the bill. Citgo refuses to do that,
Okay.
or
Okay.
Crystal. So
Okay.
for a long time, we've not used them because of that. And when they decide to do that, then we'll be more than happy to go
Okay.
ahead and patronize them as well.
Okay. Danielson's Greenhouse on the front of the first page. It's the second item down, $60, property maintenance, Railroad Avenue.
That's probably a grass cutting bill.
Okay. Okay. Snow fence, we bought $1,500 worth of snow fence.
Yep.
We didn't have any snow fence?
No, we had no snow fence.
I seen they dropped some off at the Thirsty Whale for their party last week. That's all I have.
Mr. Menegini? Yeah, going back to the snow fence there, I see it's here twice. I don't know exactly how much did we get, they're identical. One's under the general fund, right on the bottom, 100 feet snow fence, Marion Park, 760. And the other one says snow fence, 125 Marion Park, 100 feet. And it's the same check number, so do we get
I think we bought
200
more.
feet there, or what?
No, I think we bought more, we bought much more than that. I mean, we did, I'm not sure why they split it. I'll have to go back and double check why they split it.
Yeah, okay.
Most of it was for the 125. That's
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. I had one other question here.
I think the actual footage is gonna be about 2,000 feet.
2,000 feet. Oh, maybe that was, okay, because there's a
No, that says
There's
100.
a 20 in
100.
parentheses,
Yeah,
and
but
then
we-
100
I'm
foot.
pretty sure we bought over
2,000.
2,000 feet of snow fence,
Okay.
for that activity.
Last page. The Trust and Agency Fund. 2015 summer taxes, North Alert, county settlement, $1,600. What's that dark store thing where they had to be paid back, or?
No, we didn't have a payback on dark store. you
So
know, yet.
what's
We
county
haven't-
settlement?
I'd have to get with Mary and find out what that settlement is. Typically, there might be something within, you know, that has to be repaid. Is it a, I'm trying to look and see where
It
you,
says property last page, page 7 of 8. Trust and Agency Fund. One is A&R property tax ambulance, and the other due to EMS COOM
You see that?
ambulance.
yeah, that, I'll have to double check to see what those payments are.
Okay, because to the best of my knowledge, I never remember seeing anything like that before. That's all I have.
And the only question I had was about the price of the gas that Mark brought up, so without any other comments or questions, we
I
need...
do have one, Doc.
Okay,
I have another one on page 1 of 8. We have underneath the police department, you got 2 boxes of 9mm, 124 grain, and 1 box of 45 caliber for $850. I hope that's more than just a 24 pack in a box.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We buy large quantities, and they're actually having, you know, actual training, shooting qualifications. There's a training
Okay,
that's
so
coming
one
up.
box could be multiple
Oh, yeah.
cases inside
Yeah.
of it? Okay.
Yeah, it's a large case,
Okay.
you know, it's a large quantity.
any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2016-11 in an amount of $235,141.95.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes,
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
anybody in the audience like to address the council on any agenda item? Otherwise, there's room at the end for further comment. First thing on the agenda is Resolution 216-12, General Tax Appropriations Act. Mr. Anderson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, we last meeting, we held our public hearing on the budget. As I mentioned, let's walk through a couple of the highlights. As we mentioned last week, or last meeting, you know, there are 13 funds in the general fund, or in the budget. Most notably, the general fund, our utility funds, the electric, cable, water, sewer. We still have the golf fund in one of the funds, even though it has $0 in it at this point. We're required by law to carry that for 3 years. Capital Fund and Downtown Development Authority, and of course our 2 street funds. In my letter to the council, I highlighted out where the levels of these funds, and as I pointed out, over the next year to 2 years, the water and sewer funds have the highest percentage. Will be the largest funds by virtue of volume in revenue and expense, but that's because of a project that's coming up, and so they're roughly 34% of our overall budget. Our overall budget is $17 million. Typically, it would be more in the line of 12 to 14 million, but because of these projects, it's it's quite a bit more for this next year. The next largest fund is, of course, the electric fund, which is at 4.2 million, which is about 24%. Again, the percentages, keep those in mind, that's with the water and sewer being bumping down, I guess, the percentage. And then, of course, the general fund at $2.7 million. Most of the other funds at this point are under 10% in overall of the budget. Again, you know, when the water and sewer comes back to its normal funding level, without the project, that number, a couple of those might pop up above 10%. So the couple of key notes, in the general fund, this is typically the fund that you know, we give the most attention to because it's probably the hardest fund to balance. It's the one that involves our taxes. It also, you know, the way that we handle it through with our auditor, the largest revenue source within the general fund is actually transfers from all of the other enterprise funds. It makes up about 38% of our revenue in the general fund. Now that transfer, that accounts for legal expenses that are incurred in the general fund that we get reimbursed, you know, such as administrative assistance, our software, computerized software, billing, all the billing activities. We put one police officer completely in the transfer, so one police officer is covered through our utilities, and that's based off the philosophy that they're also protecting our utilities. The police department is protecting our assets, and so, you know, that is a major revenue in our general fund. The second is property taxes at about 32%, and state shared revenues at 10.6%. I pointed out as before that the revenue sharing, which is basically sales tax, has gone from a high of about 27% of our revenue down to now it's just over 10%, as you can see, 10.6%. There's also a chart which in the document which shows that we had a high in 2001 of $373,000, and today for this next year we're estimating $286,000. So we have had a steady decrease, you know, in our revenue sharing, which, you know, as you know, expenses do climb, and you know, with you have decreased revenues, you know, we've made a lot of modifications in the fund over the years to accommodate for the decreasing revenues. Another note is in the property tax. The last 3 years, 2014, 15, and now 16, we've had a decrease in taxable value. We went from a high of $58.3 million. We're down to $54.47 million. So we have had a decrease in that area as well. Through all of that, you know, we're proud of our balancing of the general fund and keeping that fund and actually moving that fund forward. A few years ago, when we purchased the property from Dave Anderson, we actually dropped our fund equity down between 10 and 15%, probably about 11% if I remember the number. Now it's up over 25%, and that only can happen if you, on a regular basis, bring in more revenue than you expend. So our general fund has been positive over a number of years here to bring that fund equity up above the 25% threshold. That 25% is a typical value that you want to have, and that's 25% of your expected expenses, of your budgeted expenses. So
would that number in the taxes being dropped from 54 million to 53, some of that would be considered, I would imagine the property that Dave Anderson sold us is still in his name because we're buying it under land contract, right?
no, it is not. It's in our name.
Okay, so that would be considered some of the loss, right?
Actually
Would
not,
be
because that was never in the tax roll. It was in the township, and then we annexed it. But when we annexed it, of course, we didn't get any revenue off the annex because it's in our name.
Okay.
So
The taxes going from non-homestead property to homestead property would be in there.
well, we actually don't see a decrease when it goes to homestead, because what happens is when it goes from non-homestead to homestead, the actual decrease is in the state education fund. You know, so we don't see a decrease based on that calculation.
See, I thought the state kicked in the difference, and we seen, and the county, us and the county seen the difference
Well,
in a reduction.
we don't. The city doesn't. The city, the extra 18 mills goes to the school. So if you have a homestead, that 18 mills is taken off, and then the state, and I guess Candy, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not 100% familiar with school funding, but that 18 mills is picked up by the state.
So the school gets their money no matter what.
Yes, I believe so.
So the reduction would be in the county then?
No, there's
Who loses the money in that
the state,
homestead versus non-homestead?
the state,
State
the
does?
state, it's out of the state education fund. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we don't see a reduction, the county doesn't see a reduction based on the homestead, non-homestead designation. Property values, the taxable values are what's dropping. And the confusing part, we've dealt with this for a number of years, is that in the state of Michigan, and I outline it as carefully as I could within the memo, so try to explain how the legislation works. But under Headley and under Proposal A from back in the 90s, they capped property tax increase. So we have a taxable value and we have a state assessed value. And so what happens is that even though you might, if you held your house for a long period of time, or your property for a long period of time, over the years, that state equalized value could be rising quite a bit, more than the cost of living, 3% or whatever the total number is that you can go up to. But your taxes aren't rising higher than that, your taxable value. So as you go up, if your state equalized value comes down, your property tax value comes down, your taxes are still going up by the inflation. Yep. Over the last 3 years, it's actually got to the point now where that state equalized value and the taxable value, it's actually hitting into that. And so you'll see some reductions in the taxable value because it's starting to come down. Okay. You know, so it took a while because we've been in this property issue for a number of years. Anybody who own property, we've been in this kind of property funk for a while, and even in our taxable values, we're slowly going up, and that was because of that Proposal A. So
Shouldn't it have been a little bit more stable because we annexed that properties in? Or this township still gets their same amount until somebody builds a new house, right?
Right, until it comes off and goes onto the tax roll for whoever
For a
buys
new
the property.
house.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There's no net change in the taxes from the annexed area because it's still owned by the city, and it was owned by the city beforehand or in the township, for Dave Anderson's case. So, okay. I did some explanation too in the note on the major and local street fund. Again, just explaining what those two funds are, which streets are part of the major and local system, and also you can see in our budget that there's very little increase traditionally in major and local funds. This past year, because of obligations or promises from the state in the new law, there's an anticipation of an increase. However, we have to be mindful to watch that every year because there's some discussion that it actually may not go through exactly the way that it was promised. So we're going to not get too aggressive in forecasting for the major and local street. We're just going to have to, on an annual basis, see where we're at with it. This year we did program project for mill and pave, or crush and shape, I should say, not mill and pave, crush and shape, and we're going to try to put together about a $500,000 project. That should go out to bid here right around the 1st of July. So we're just finishing up our bid documents. One thing that I will need to discuss with council over the next couple of weeks is it looks like, based on our limits on the project that were actually under what we originally had estimated for the cost. The engineer's estimate is about $350,000, $300,000 to $350,000. So there's a chance that if you want to increase the limits of the project, you could. I'm not sure we want to go out and look at a whole new road, but we possibly could extend the limits. My recommendation is that you go beyond the limits and bring back, because it's harder to add to the project after the contractor's on board than it is to scale it back by footage. You know, it's still a per unit basis, but you probably can scale it back a little bit. It's a little bit easier.
How would it be if we started to come across 16th on that project and we went towards the old store on Norway Hill, because there's some nasty spots up there that Doc had talked about for years.
The part between the big S-shaped curve and the highway is by far the worst area. I would think if we're gonna add to that project, the curve and the part along the edge of the road there in front of the new subdivision is far worse than 16.
But the only thing is that's what we talked about in the budget meeting, is that the engineering for that drop road from the subdivision where you go to Lee's down to, say, Rick Gustafson's, that was the spot, remember when we talked about the engineering was crazy.
Right,
Yeah, that's
because you have to
gonna be a project.
re-engineer that corner, which still has to be done at some time.
But we were hoping for
But
a
we were gonna
grant
go
or
for
something.
funding, we were gonna
Yeah.
try for funding for that stretch.
One of three cities when it comes to us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm shooting for 20. I'm shooting for 2020 on that schedule.
What did you say we're at, 350,000?
Yeah, it's between 300 and 350, and I can't remember the exact number. I just heard that before I came in here.
we had talked about
But
what,
we don't have
540,
to add to that, do we?
Well, we talked about 500.
500.
So, yeah, so it'd be about 450 to 460. What we can, I can ask the engineers if it's a unit basis anyway, so what we could do is see where the bids come in, and then we could always, I guess we could extend beyond the boundary on any one of the, if that's the way you want to go. But if we go to a new road, I wouldn't recommend doing that after we have a contractor. I would say stick with the projects we have and just extend one of them out.
Or we can just stay with that price and not extend.
Yeah, you could stay with that price and just keep it there and say, that's good, this is what we want, and we're not gonna spend the extra.
But what Ray was saying before is that it would be easier now to get a price on an extension, and then we could pull that extension back if it was something we didn't want to do, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, I usually like to pull back on those, but now that I'm thinking about it, adding to it or pulling back, it's all on a unit basis. What I don't want to do is add a different road to it, because then you have different mobilization costs. You have a potential for the contractor to add additional costs, and I don't want that. If you just add to or subtract from what you have, you probably would have a net equivalent, and so maybe we just stay where we're at and see where it is, and if
Well,
you
we
want to
didn't-
go to it, you can.
We didn't have from the corner, from on top of the hill, to Kramer's, did we? That part wasn't in there. It was just a part from Kramer's to
Yes.
that other spot. We
That's
didn't have the top part on
We
there.
had the top part by
I thought we
Keppel's.
had 16th, because then
Yeah,
it turns to 14th
Yeah.
there by the water,
No, I think we just
by the
went from
pump house.
I think we just went from
the pump house.
Kramer's to that corner, that bad corner going down to Gustafson's.
No, I thought we went from the 16th, from the
Six-
big corner in.
From the top of
Didn't we,
the,
Doc?
top of the hill,
I
right to
understood we
the
were
pump
going
station.
from the top of Main Street all the way over to the S-shaped corner is what I understood.
Yeah,
Well, I think maybe that's a discrepancy in the number, because when we left, we were under the impression that we were going from the pump station.
That's what I
Yes,
thought, too.
yes. Yeah.
see,
So we could add that
I
small
thought
section
that
on
we,
top.
I thought that's what we talked about,
Yeah,
was
well,
from
we
the top
talked
of
about
Main.
it, maybe we didn't finalize it
When
enough,
we
I
walked
guess,
away,
but
that
I was
wasn't what we
mentioned.
thought was the final. And maybe that's what the engineers had in their, in their number.
Well,
because I
before we
went up-
change anything, why don't we find out and
Yeah.
look at it next meeting then?
Okay.
Got a
But
question here,
Originally, I
Ray.
thought we'd agreed to start at the top of Main
We
Street
Yeah.
did talk about that
and
first,
go
but
all
then
the
we
way to
changed our mind.
the new
Yeah.
subdivision, and then put the corner in and the other part.
Well, that corner, I remember that being very expensive.
It was $50,000 just for the corner.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. But is that because they were gonna straighten it out, or the road is so bad there?
It had to
That
be
was for the
re-engineered.
engineering.
That
It
was-
had to be re-engineered, and that's where we were talking about making that
And the-
road.
and the rest
from
was
the other-
crusher shaped.
Behind Kramer's house. going up on that access road back there.
I think that that's a no-brainer because across from the top of Norway Hill over to the pump station, or the whatever that, yeah, the pump station, that's probably just as bad as the other half.
Well, I can tell them to put that in and see where it comes out, and then you can pull that part back if you want, if it goes over.
I think it should be in there.
I think so too.
Well,
just that
it
short-
doesn't make sense to me if you do it over here and you leave this the way it is and it's good over here.
Yeah.
You're leaving that
You gotta
spot in between
finish
with-
that middle part. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, why don't I do that? I'll have them, put that back in and see where the number falls then, and then, you know, we can just bid it that way, and then if you do want to pull back, you can pull back. It's not that big of a.
Okay, I have a question here, Ray, under
Sure.
Public Act 51, backing up a little bit. Major and local streets. Halfway down in that second paragraph, it says your 2% of all state gasoline tax revenue goes into a recreation improvement fund, which is used for improvements of marinas, which is not us, trails and other facilities for motorized
Yeah.
recreation. So is that grant money that we have to apply for that
No,
2%, or where?
well, no,
Where does
that's
it go?
not the trust fund grant that we go after.
Okay.
The trust fund is all gas monies, gas royalty monies.
Right.
And the 2% is actually state money. They do their own projects.
Oh, so
Yeah, so MDOT
we
takes
can't
a
go,
cut.
we can't go get that money.
No. MDOT takes a third of it right up,
Okay,
you know, and then, yeah.
okay.
I'll open up for additional questions at this point.
I got one question under the DDA here.
Okay,
Second paragraph down, fiscal year 2016 property tax revenue is estimated at 154,000, which is a decrease of 27% under fiscal year 2015.
great.
Why? What happened?
A couple things. One is multicolor.
Multicolor?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
I
a
thought
big
maybe
one,
that'd be part of
multicolor.
it.
Yeah, and a lot of decrease in taxable value hits the DDA harder than it hits the city because, you know, they have a number of those properties in their district. So, but big one is multicolor.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, multicolor had, that issue had no effect taxable wise on the general fund. It was all borne by the DDA.
But now with GAD going in there,
Yeah, that's,
should
they're,
bounce back
they're
up.
still not going to, you know, personal property wise, they're not going to come back to that level. You know, but, you know, they don't have the equipment that multicolor had. But
Yeah.
it's still, it's a fantastic opportunity. It's
Oh, yeah.
using that building. We're very proud and happy to have GAD or have Loadmaster in the community, and GAD. I mean, Dave is, he's making a commitment to Norway. That's a fantastic.
Well, that
thing.
was a nice article in the paper there.
Yeah.
I believe it was last Saturday on the last page where he's going to hire 26 more people and he's got orders for lots of trucks from Chicago.
I'd like to talk about the personnel here right
Okay.
now, I guess. I really would like to see us incorporate, for financial reasons, the blight into the Norway Police Department and the zoning being your, Ray, the head of the zoning you are the zoning administrator. I would like to eliminate that position. Being that the police, if you look at that paper that you handed out here with all the complaints, there's only 2 complaints on here that were not initiated by the police department. So I feel that the police department has no problem handling that. They have computers with them in the car when they're on downtime, and we have a chance to save. It was $12,000 a year. It might be a little hair higher after July 1st, and I think we should save that money. The police department are after, seems like every 2 years they're looking for a vehicle. This would help offset the cost of those vehicles, and I think it's a no-brainer. I think we need to look at incorporating that stuff in. Being, if there is a problem with blight and they come back and they need a ticket, it has to go right back to the police department after the code enforcement for blight has to hand it back to the police department. I think that we need to go that way.
Well,
and
the
save
the
the
code
money.
enforcement officer doesn't hand the ticket back. I mean, they're actually authorized to write the ticket. And majority of what he does is it's initiated by the police department, and he goes and does the investigation on it, and then does the paperwork and does the follow-up. So, you know, that would be, what his hours on a weekly basis, that would be extra, you know, work for the officers. That's not what they're doing now. The chief has said that he's not comfortable. He thinks that it's working well now, and that he's concerned about making the change. That's one of the reasons we went with this situation, is because we were getting better compliance, better attention, and working with the courts. You know, having a compliance officer, it's pretty common to have somebody, you know, handle this, you know, outside of the police department. So that's.
Bill seems to do okay. I know he's not here, so we can't talk about his performance, but I beg to differ with you. You could lose a small child over there in front of the Old Family Dollar with the grass there, and I filed a complaint weeks ago, and it's still long over there, and it's the first thing you see coming into the city. And there's other problems with this, and I just think that the police department can handle it, and I'd like to see us save the money.
How long ago did the police department used to handle this way?
We've been working in this scenario for 6 years, 7 years.
So it's been that long since the police handled this?
Yeah, it's, you know, Jim Wiseman was the first person that started helping out. It started off, he was just giving me some assistance with helping on the zoning permits to be a little bit quicker with the residents. And also, you know, because he knew how to work with properties, and so he was helping with the blight, and it just had worked well, and so we kind of expanded that into the current role.
I don't believe Jim Wiseman was writing tickets.
Yes, he was, absolutely.
Well, I think that we need to we need to save some money into the budget, and it's a perfect opportunity for us to incorporate some of this in.
To me, it boils down to how good you want the job done. It's a very slow process going through this. By the time they get notified, they get a letter, blah, 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 blah. Eventually, they wind up going to court if they want to fight it. And with my background, my father being chief of police years ago, I am not about to tell Officer Schaefer, Chief Schaefer, how to run his department. And if that's the way Jimmy wants to run it, that's the way he wants to run it, and I'm fine with that.
I feel that there's nobody more qualified to go to court than the police officers.
How many times a month do you think we're going to court on any of these, Ray? Just an estimate.
Well, the only time you go to court is when somebody challenges a ticket. The typical number is usually you're challenged 2 to 5% of the time. You know, you get compliance out of 95 to 90% of the people, you know, when they get a notice.
So maybe once a month, if that?
If that once a month, yeah.
So it's not taking up that much more time.
No, but the court isn't, but winning at court is the most important thing. We haven't lost those court cases. You typically goes to the magistrate. And one of the reasons is because when the letters go out, then you follow up to the letters, then you look at the timing on the ticket, and remediation. It's what we say we're going to do. And, you know, there's always an appeal process. It's very clearly spelled out. Typically, those people don't follow the proper appeals process. They go to court, and you know, there's very little sympathy from the magistrate when they don't follow that appeals process when they're offered that in their due process. If we don't follow our due process, then we're gonna lose that advantage when we go up there. And that's part of our problem with what we had before, is that, yes, it was dragging out, and it was because of all the other duties that everybody was having. And so it was really important to stay on top of the timing. I mean, our city attorney is gonna have to, deal more in this area, so I don't know, I think maybe I'll throw the ball over to you, Grant, and see what you think.
Well, I'd echo Ray's comments as far as, and his answer to the council as far as our appearances in court. I mean, generally speaking, and I've worked with Mr. Borg on a couple different occasions, and also the police department on a few occasions as well, as it pertains specifically to zoning and some of these issues that we're referencing here. It comes up every once in a while. Generally speaking, the citizens get into compliance. It's usually they don't understand something, or it's a miscommunication, or something has come up where they're unable to take care of it. And usually, what I've seen with Mr. Borga and the officers that are charged with following up on this is once it's brought to their attention, generally speaking, they come into compliance because they just simply didn't know. And that's one of the issues, is making sure that whoever is doing this, that it's streamlined, it's working with the community, because it's an extension of the city government, and working with those folks and the citizens and making sure they are in compliance, and if they aren't, let them know what they have to do to get into compliance. It's working together. I've been in court with Mr. Borga on a couple occasions, and a number of the officers on a couple occasions, and they all do a fine job. And as Mr. Anderson referenced, frankly, as I was telling him earlier today, I've found our city police and our staff that I've worked with in that capacity to be very well-trained and very, very professional and prepared. And a lot of times when you're dealing with the zoning, as some of you know, as business folks on the council, zoning is a very technical area of the law. It's complicated. It's not very sometimes it's not easy to interpret. So it helps to have
So
folks
it's
that
just
are.
not the blight thing?
I don't
No,
think
he
so.
handles, he does a lot of field work for me on the zoning. So we try to turn those zoning applications around as quickly as we can. If we have problems, we have to get back. We can spend quite a bit of time with a resident on fences.
So that's what I was
A
just
lot of
gonna
it are
ask, is that
setbacks.
like if somebody wants to put up in a garage or a fence or something like that?
Right.
To be
Yeah.
in
But
compliance?
You are the zoning administrator still, right?
I am the zoning administrator, yes.
And you sign all the permits?
I do sign all the permits, right. But each one of those, they do require you to go out and take a look at what the people have and talk with the individuals, because very rarely do you see one that comes through that's just clear cut. I mean, they're dealing with property lines. You never want to make a mistake with property lines. So you always want to be very careful. Setbacks, we're trying to, it's an older community, so right now we have encroachments, especially to the alleys, and we're trying to, the Planning Commission has gone through on a number of revisions to the zoning code to try and bring the fences back from the hardscape alley, because you got to allow area for snow removal, encroachment of garages as people then parking over the sidewalks and different things. And so, you're doing a lot of educating as you go along. And of course, it's one of the harder things we do, because people don't really like to be told they can't do something they want to do on their own property. Right. And so, nobody really likes it. It's a very tough thing. People are typically not happy in dealing with us in the zoning. So I mean, it's one of the few times that I've actually heard of residents, yelling at our staff, getting irate, and I mean, they work crazy, really hard to try and help people along, but it's just,
So did the police ever do the zoning, or they just
No,
did the
police
blight?
never did the zoning. No, that's always been through the manager's office.
Why wouldn't it make sense, though, then? I've sat on the zoning board of appeals for years, and I was chairman for quite a few years, and Bill Borga has never came to any of the confrontations that were here in this room.
Yeah, because when it gets to the point of a variation, typically I'm working with that person.
But if he has the most knowledge, if he's doing all the legwork and preparing the paperwork for you, why wouldn't he be here?
I have the most knowledge. I'm not trying to, I mean, I'm the zoning administrator, I need to know, I'm signing my name on that document.
I agree with
He's helping me work through some of the issues, but ultimately it comes to my desk. When it comes to a variation, then, you know, our job is to try and help somebody comply with the rules in the zoning. And we've said that, you know, you've heard me
Oh, yeah.
say that at the zoning. And so when it gets to the point of a variation, somebody just doesn't, they either just, they don't want to hear about it, they want to try for, you know, their plan. I mean, that's their responsibility to show hardship, you know, and so I probably at that point spend more time with that person, you know, getting it to the zoning board. Not to mention, you know, he is on a per hour basis, and so there's really no reason to have him come to the meeting and have him expend more hours if I just take it. I'm here anyway. And
But
so
if he's
that's my
doing the legwork on the research, I mean, I would think that that's who you would want here. You have to sign your name to it, so you should be here. But he's doing the legwork. He's taking the pictures, he's doing that, doing this and that, and preparing the case. Why wouldn't he sit in on it?
Because I didn't ask him to. If I asked him to, he would. I didn't ask him to because I can handle the case.
I just think the police department is a draw, and I do think a draw from our tax dollars and out of our general fund, and I think we should, they're looking for cars, they're looking for different things every year on a regular basis, and I think we should utilize them a little bit more.
Well,
They have computers in the cars. They should be able to handle the blight side of this ordinance. They should be able to handle the blight side of it.
Well, you could also still keep Mr. Borga on and have him do the zoning and have the police do the blight. Couldn't you do that?
I don't understand why you would want to do that when he's, I don't understand why you would want to do that when Ray is signing off on this paperwork with his name, and I just think that it should be handled in-house. With the people that we have.
You know, I don't want to put it out there about Mr. Borges, the person in that position now, he does a good job, but I do feel that there's ways we can save money. There's definitely ways that we could do that. Not saying it has to go to the police department, not saying it has to go somewhere else. I just think that we could combine this job position with somebody in-house.
You know, and we also have a guy that we took over from the Golf Commission that is working here that we could also utilize him. I mean, his wage comes right directly out of the general fund, directly out of the general fund. He was here at the last meeting. There's no reason why he couldn't assist Ray with preparing this paperwork. There's no reason. Both of these wages are coming directly out of the general fund. We need to start sharpening our pencils around this place if we're going to straighten some stuff out.
Well, as I mentioned in my monologue, the general fund has been positive for a number of years. We have been sharpening our pencil over a number of years. We can see it from the fund equity going from 11% up to over 25%. So, you know, I do think that, you know, we've been, you know, saving money within the general fund over those years. The employees have, you know, in 15 years, 16 years I've been here, I've negotiated every contract, and the employees have had a concession in every single contract, vastly different than they were 15 plus years ago. You know, our obligations on, especially in retirement, are quite a bit down. You know, it's a totally different retirement scenario than what they had, you know, that far ago. So, you know, it's painful to hear that you don't think that we're sharpening our pencils. I mean, that's, you know,
I'm not saying,
we really work hard at.
I should say, don't quit sharpening your pencil.
Right.
We have an opportunity here, and we have done a lot of good things. I'm not saying we haven't, but we have an opportunity here to utilize somebody that we drew in from the Golf Commission and utilize the police department a little more and save some money, and also possibly either save the money or put the money back in to the cars every 2 years instead of keep taking money out of the general fund for these vehicles. There comes a point in time when there has to be a little give and take with the police department and some of the other employees. I mean, we have this employee that came over here. He's here.
Again, I think the employees, I'm just gonna speak for them right now in their defense. I mean, to say the give and take, I mean, they have over 15 years. I mean, I know because I'm negotiating those contracts, and, you know, that would be, you know, you don't wanna, say that they're not giving and taking, because
I'm not saying they're
they
not
are.
giving and taking. I'm saying giving and taking responsibility.
Yeah. And we have, I mean, there's different, you know, we have less people than, we have vast, you know, when I started, we had over 40 people, full-time employees. We're down to what, 27 or 28?
Yeah, we also automated the hydro for millions of dollars to take care of some of that stuff, though.
But it's not just the hydro. I mean, there's other areas that we've decreased staff, you know, down in the water department, the DPW department, the sewer department, big time. There's at least 2 less employees down in
We've
the
also
sewer
did some
department.
automating over there for millions of dollars.
Not yet.
Garbage.
Some
Not
of it.
yet. Not yet. There's no automation in the wastewater. That's part of this project. You know, and it's, I guess, you know, we've got a pretty good system going with our property maintenance and our zoning, and, you know, the compliance aspect of it is pretty good. You know, we do hear positive comments about the community. It looks good. People come through and say that, you know, it looks neat and clean, and you know, Norway gets a lot of positive comments that way, so.
That doesn't really mean you lay down and play dead and not try to improve the system. I'm not saying that the
Well, we
town
don't
is
think it's an
suffering.
improvement by taking them away. That's our fear. That's between the police chief and myself. That's our fear, is that we're not going to improve the system, that it's going to digress, and we hope, you know, that it doesn't go that direction. Because it's, you know, it's been pretty consistent now. People are getting used to, you know, dealing with us on these issues. So.
Well, the budget for the police department looks like it's $612 or $23,000, so I'm not sure that 12 is gonna make a huge difference, so. I thought this was a good idea too, initially talking with Mark, but now I'm not convinced, I guess, after hearing the arguments tonight.
Personally, I think the system we're working now, granted, it could be better. You can always improve things, but I think it's the best system we've ever had. Well, the last 6 years anyway. It's the best we've had. And like I said before, I don't want to get into telling the chief of police how to run his department.
You know, $12,000 here, $12,000 there, it all adds up. That's a new cop car every 2 years, and we're not paying money out of the general fund. We've saved it. We're still paying money out of the general fund, but we've saved it.
I think it's a good opportunity to save money. I'm not saying it has to go to the police department or it has to go there. It would be nice to save that money and put it in, do it somehow in-house.
And
Someone should make a motion, I would think.
I make a motion, we drop the code violation, zoning, not administrator, paperwork preparer, out of the budget and handle it in-house via Ray, the police department, and the gentleman that we have from the golf commission that came over from the golf course.
Support?
And Grant, that's a proper motion. I know we got into trouble one time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just, you know, I don't think you can necessarily tell, I think that the proper motion, Mark, trying to read between the lines, would be to defund the position that you guys are talking about, this is the zoning enforcement or the code enforcement position. Trying to then tell the city manager where the money should come from or
Okay.
how to do this. I mean, I think the
Motion to drop the position?
well, just to defund the position. You're talking about a budget at this point.
Okay.
So it's a defund, and then Mr. Anderson as your city manager, if the motion approves, he would either have to find money some other way, or to reapportion the responsibilities that were in that position. But I don't think you can go so far as to
Okay.
tell where, or
Okay.
how to do it.
You got that, Trish?
Support.
Roll call.
Mrs. Brew,
No.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes,
No.
Mr. Menegini,
No.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Would someone else like to make a motion then? I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2016-12.
Support.
Mr. Pop,
No.
You don't have a second.
Doc.
I made the motion.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Pop,
No.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
No.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Now, resolution 2016-13, adoption of the 2016-17 operating and capital improvement budget. Mr. Anderson.
Well, the previous motion, 2016-12, the previous resolution, was what they call a General Appropriations Act. That's required by law. It basically just sets in the resolution the budget levels for the general fund and the major and local street fund. The actual overall budget, 2016-13, is your overall budget approval. So,
Is there any discussion? Or is there anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2016-13, operating and capital improvement budgets be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
No.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
No.
Number 8, approval of Sturgeon Falls Hydro Unit Number 2 repairs, change order number 1.
hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The shop, FMR, that's handling our unit number 2 runner repairs, we got down to the last couple of weeks here, last week to 2 weeks of work, and due to the amount of material that we've had to add to the blades, they're requesting a change order to go above the original cost of $50,000, the original approval. They're asking for $15,000 to make the total $65,000. I just want to remind everybody that this is an insurance reimbursed activity, and we have been running with them on a timely material. So, you know, it's basically the amount of extra work that we've had to do to get them to the shape that they're.
So they'll pick up that extra 15,000?
Yes. Yeah. They pick up 100% of the cost right now.
Ray, how much has the insurance company paid for so far? I've lost track. I know it's quite a bit.
Oh.
See if we can get that figure
I'll
next
get
time.
that figure for you next
Get
time.
an up-to-date figure
Yeah.
on it, okay?
But we paid
Even
$25,000.
include these two in here, you know?
Yeah. I'll give you a total.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve change order number 1?
I'll make a motion that change order number 1 be approved to FMR for $15,000 to complete the shop repairs to unit number 2. The total for the shop work on the project will not be to exceed $65,000.
Support.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
And the same project for the field installation, you know, talking to Myron, you know, they had some of the similar concerns going in, and they've asked that we include a change order for $6,585 to complete their installation. That would bring a total price up to $54,835. And again, it's the same scenario where, you know, it is insurance reimbursed.
So it's the same thing?
Ray, I see it's to pay for this extra man. I realize insurance is paying for it, but I don't know, could we have somebody do that and get paid for it? Or they have to have a
No.
qualified mill rate / whatever it would take?
No, well, that's up to the contractor. There is, we are signatory, with the union as far as the contractors. I don't know why this wasn't classified as a permit, required confined
Well,
space.
yeah, you would think it would be right off the bat.
I thought about that in writing this out and putting this together, but I'd like to move forward and get the change order and moving along. But if we can save that, if we can have somebody, and I'm gonna work with our safety director, to do that, then yes, that would be the cost, additional cost
Yeah, well,
that we could
Okay.
get reimbursed for. So was thinking about that, but we'll have to get on site and see if we can do that.
And you're convinced that this is a legitimate thing?
Yes, this is an
Oh, yeah.
OSHA, my OSHA requirement, that it's,
How come we got away with it before?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe a new safety person that was checking in on it. I know I talked with him directly on the issue, and yeah, it's pretty clear,
Okay.
so. And it all boils down to, it's a limited ingress and egress. I mean, you can't, no matter how much monitoring and everything else, if something happens and somebody, collapses in the pit, they can't crawl out.
Right.
So
It's
it's pretty clear.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I make the motion to approve the, unit number 2 installation change order.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Minigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Number 10, Mr.
Yes, this is, when we went through the budget hearings, we talked with Mead and Hunt about, with change in personnel and, Tim and I both looking at FERC compliance, not knowing exactly how Joe had set it up for what he was going to do in-house. We went through a number of different scenarios. One was I had Mead and Hunt priced to do everything, and we said, no, we can do some of this in-house. We kind of stayed on course with what we did in the past, and this past week we had a FERC inspection. It went very well, very happy with how things went. But one of the areas that, in looking at this over the last number of weeks, there's this dam safety report that, and no pun intended, but this report that,
DAM, right?
yeah, that, and looking at the report, we can't handle this in-house. The write-up and the, I don't know, maybe with our utility secretary at the time, or utility clerk, that we were able to do some of that, but we can't do it in-house now. So I asked them to give me a price to just take care of this. We are actually 1.5 to 2 years late on this, and FERC is we have a great working relationship. And when Marvin was here last time, talked about having a bad relationship and getting to a good relationship. We have an excellent relationship right now, and they have been very cordial about as long as we're working towards and getting these requirements done, they're pretty patient, but they want to see us work towards it. And and again, I'm looking at the extent of the report, and I think that I'm asking that we add this $9,200 to their contract. This is something we can definitely handle in the budget, in the professional services area. In fact, some of the work that he's doing, he's actually using, this current numbers, because they hadn't reached their allotment, and so he's doing some of this stuff under the current budget. But once we hit July 1st, he's going to have a new budget. So I think, my request is if we could do this, approve this $9,200 and bring their contract up to $47,800.
Well, we have to keep FERC happy.
Any other discussion? In other words, we need a A motion.
I'll make a motion that Mead and Hunt be approved to provide technical assistance for preparing and submitting the DSSMR for the City of Norway for a price not to exceed $9,200, bringing the total annual engineering support for FERC license compliance to not exceed $47,800.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Number 11, low-income energy assistance program.
Oh, this is one of our favorites. Every year, we need to approve at this time, at this meeting, whether or not we're opting in or opting out of Public Act 95 of 2013. What this is that in 2013, Governor Snyder basically informed the Congress, the House, and the Senate that he did not or would not approve a budget that had this heating assistance in the general fund of the state. And so what the two houses did is they rolled up their sleeves and they came up with a plan to fund this through the electric utilities in the state of Michigan. Under the current rules, under the previous rule, when they had a situation, a fatality in Bay City, where an elderly gentleman froze to death because they had a load limiter on his electric for non-payment, and he used a microwave or did something and popped it, didn't know, that he did, and froze, and they came out with a new set of legislation which actually clarified ways of dealing with non-payments during the winter months, and that was you have to provide a payment option, but you also had the ability to shut off if they don't follow the payment plan, and it actually helped utilities like ours to work with individuals to come to compliance, come to payment. Under this law, if you opt out of the funds, there's two things that happen. One is that you cannot shut off during the months of November through April. The second is that because we're not putting into the state heating fund, there are two funds that our residents, our customers, are able to go to for assistance. One is the MEAT funds, which is the Michigan Energy Assistance Program funds, and the other is the LEAP funds, which is, or the SEER funds, which is State Energy Relief Funds. They can't utilize all those funds if we opt out. So in the past, we've opted in, and by opting in, there's a surcharge on every electric meter of can't go more than 99 cents. The first year it was 99 cents, last year was 98 cents. We don't know what it is. They have to find out who opts in and who opts out before they tell you how much, because they look at the pool. So it's going to be in that range, probably 98 cents a meter. Per month. Again, it's just a simple yes or no, opt in or opt out, and then we notify the state. We've always recommended to opt in just because the system we use now, working with our residents, has worked relatively well. And if we now go back to where we don't shut off, absolutely, between November 1st and April 15th, we think there'll be a higher risk of non-compliance, non-payment. So, but that's it's council's prerogative of whether we opt in or opt out. So,
Well, I think it's been working very well, and we've only had one complaint. Last summer, I believe that was a gentleman came here and said it was unconstitutional and all kinds of stuff, but I'm all for it.
Are you making a motion?
I can make the motion that the City of Norway opt in on the PA 95 Low-Income Energy Assistance Program and collect the necessary funds from our customers.
Is there a second?
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anybody in the audience Want to make any comments? If so, come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Note your discussion to 5 minutes. If not, Mr. Mangini, do you have any comments?
The only comment I have is congratulations, the boys. They won their regional baseball game and went downstate and kind of ran into a buzzsaw, but they had a great year. Along with the girls, they won their first game in the regional and lost the finals, and the team that beat them wound up losing 1-0 in the state finals. That's all I have.
Did you hear what happened with that, though? The team that beat
The
them?
alleged loaded bat?
The loaded bat?
Alleged loaded bat? Yeah. Yeah. Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Mr. Boglani?
I'd like to congratulate the ball teams also on a good season. I got one problem here that I'd like to talk about. The in-service day for July 1st, Friday. That was in our executive session to help some of the members could volunteer at the Marion Park Summerfest. I think we're all on the same page. We want this thing to go through without a glitch and it to be a huge success, but I don't believe we should be shutting City Hall down and giving everybody an in-service day when we're playing with taxpayers' money. Taxpayers' money, you might have some of the taxpayers that might think it's a good idea. It's just like the golf commission, it's just like the golf course. Some people think it's a good idea and some people don't, and I think we have to go with, we have to go with not shutting City Hall down, because I don't believe we should be doing it for the 125 volunteers. I don't think it's fair to the residents.
Is that paid? The in-service, it would be paid? Is that the whole City Hall? Is that the whole city crew?
Yeah,
Is that-
we have had just a hellacious time of getting volunteers. And
Yeah.
so that was one of the discussions we had in-house, was if we could take and help out on Friday, to do that. That was actually, Trish, you want to respond to that? You've been basically our
Yeah,
mouthpiece for volunteers.
11:30 to 2:30 is when the city crews were gonna, I have them all in to work. 11:30 to 2:30, it's 3 hours. And us at City Hall, we're gonna work the next shift also till 5:30. But we don't have to, but I'd love to have you volunteer.
I just think it's not fair to the citizens because some of them are going to be for it and some of them are not, and we're playing with their money because they pay the wages. I do think, I really want it to succeed, but I don't think we should play with the citizens' money.
There's quite a few that weren't crazy about it anyways. I was just trying to do it for volunteers.
Well, if those that aren't going to volunteer, I think they ought to work. I don't
Well,
think
that's how it is, but I have been encouraging everybody to, we need your help, please come out and work.
I think,
So it's just for a couple hours?
It is, but that, I mean, it's okay either way, I mean, we just,
Well, if you need the help that bad, I'm all for it. And if this thing goes over as good as a lot of people hope it will, well, everybody hopes it goes over good. Now there's a little more enthusiasm out there. I think it might even be bigger than what they originally planned. We're gonna get this money back. I mean, granted, it's supposed to be all for park and recs, but still, we are gonna, hopefully we'll get a bundle back. But the weather's might be a little factor too, but for the 3-4 hours, I don't see any problem with it.
But it's not an all-day thing, right?
no, we
You don't
would
get the
be
whole-
working 8 to noon. The guys would be working, and then we were gonna close City Hall at, I think at noon, and go out and help at the event. But, like I said,
So you're not down the whole day? City Hall's not closed the whole day?
were we asking for an in-service? No, I think.
well, I mentioned in-service if, usually when we say
And
that,
to be
it's
honest
all
with
day,
you,
but
not all
doesn't have to be.
employees were crazy about it either, but I have been kind of spirit saying, you're working in this booth from 11:30 to 2:30, and they're like, I'm like, please, we really need you. And they're like,
Well, if they don't want to volunteer, then they should
then they
work.
have to work.
Yeah, then they have to
But,
But then they have to work.
yeah,
But But the in-service day that you were asking for was full day,
I did
right?
mention all day, you know,
Okay.
and it gave us some
But it doesn't
flexibility
open
getting out there,
until-
but it doesn't have to be.
It
I mean,
opens
like
at
I said.
noon, right?
Noon.
Noon.
Well, we got cleanup until noon, you know,
Yeah.
so then it wouldn't be open until then, and that's what we're scheduled for, the cleanup until noon,
Yeah.
so.
I get it, I get what you're saying, but I really would rather you push volunteers.
And like I,
Yeah.
Help us
and like I wrote up, I mean, this is a huge
It's a big reflection
exposure
on
for the city,
Yes.
Yes, it is.
you know, for the residents. I mean, if it goes well, it'll look great. If it doesn't, then it'll look bad. And so that's why we need everybody to help, you know, because, you know, it is 100%
I guess as
a,
long as
fundraiser.
I can buy off on it, as long as it's not closing the city hall all day, because I don't think that that's fair.
Well, and if people aren't gonna volunteer, they don't wanna work, then they should keep the city hall open.
I think-
even if it's one person here.
I think our office staff was actually
The
pretty,
office staff
almost
wasn't a
100%.
problem.
It wasn't a problem.
It was more some of the crew. And you can't tell somebody what they're doing, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, that crew would be off half a day and the city hall crew would be off half a day at the
But
most.
they wouldn't be, they'd either be.
Well, they wouldn't be off, they'd be working, yeah.
Or they would be I have them in a job for 3 hours at the event.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean,
And if they don't wanna volunteer, then have them work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be all day then, city hall would be
No,
open?
we'll go till noon.
Well, you could even go until 11, so that way it gives you a chance to, you know, if we've advertised that we're shut down at 11, that'll give the chance to get out there.
what, yeah, I think it opens at noon, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even 11:30, city hall.
You
shuts down.
might, they might want to be out there at 11:30
Yeah.
for their shift.
The
I'm
guys
sure there'll be
kind of
some
made the
prep.
comment that they were probably gonna be in the area anyway, out at the event, but I told them that I have them all on a specific job from 11:30 to 2:30. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Whatever
that.
you guys decide.
I'm good with that.
Either way, it sounds like it's for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. And if their jobs for the city take them from some of their normal routine and have them redirected a bit, as long as we're serving the citizens of the city and their safety and welfare, I think that's what's important. Echoing Mark's comments, making sure that there's a service, that our citizens get served. The legal side of things, I want to just make it clear that it's for that purpose.
Any other comments?
Nope, that's all I got.
I'd like to congratulate the baseball and softball team too. What a phenomenal year, excellent year. Like we said, the boys kind of ran into a buzzsaw there at the end, but they got the exposure. We did get a kid on the second team, all regional, which is a good accomplishment. I do have a question though, Ray, is out at Marion Park last week, the city popped in a new pole by the concession stand. Do you know what that pole is for? It's right by the safety net. I have no idea what that's for.
Oh, it might be for the 125. It might be for some of that, the video equipment that they're using, the Wi-Fi.
Oh, just a tower. Okay. That's all I have.
I didn't get a chance, but I'd like to congratulate the softball and baseball team too. And then another comment I have, when is our meeting in July since,
It's 5th.
the
It'll be
5th on
Tuesday.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
I had a couple of comments as well. I'd like to thank Grant for his letter. I'd also like to discuss the electric rates. It's my understanding, talking to people who have their electricity through Wisconsin Energy, that they can opt on a more expensive electricity during the day and much cheaper electricity during the night. And with our new meters, I think we need to look at that. That was one of the main attractions of the new meters. We have, as I understand it, some high energy users, and if we can get them to use their energy at night when electricity is cheaper for us, either buying it rather than during the day, that we would be ahead and those users would be ahead. So I'd like to go full speed forward with our new meters and allowing people to, and we have to come up with some type of rate I had a letter and I forgot it at home, just to show you what Wisconsin Electric pays. It's a huge difference between day and night as far as their electric rates. But I think with the new meters, that's something we should be doing. We'd like to direct people to use electricity at night. If it doesn't make any difference to them, then it would be during the day, and we can save money and cut down our peaking at night. So I don't know if we have anybody who can take care of that now in the electric department, Mr. Anderson, but we do.
Yeah, we have to,
We do need to come up with a policy and rates.
Yeah.
And I think proceed with that.
yeah, we're working towards that.
How's the meter installation going?
Slow right now because we got them on other things.
So
How
this
about
would
the
be
water
something.
meters?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same thing, yeah.
So again, this would be something that would be an advantage to the new meters. And I'd also like to comment that the DDA is not doing anything yet on the sidewalk on the south side of US 2, west US 2. There's a bare patch of ground full of grass between Loft Homes and Lefebvre's that I see people pushing wheelchairs over. I think we need to get that paved. I don't know why the DDA can't get going on something for this, but at least that little patch there needs, the rest of it, people can maneuver through other driveways. But I do think we need to get going on some kind of area that people can walk over to the churches or all the businesses on the south side of West US 2. So I don't know if we can come up with a way of paving that when they're in town, or.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the DDA, so I mean,
Right.
we brought it up a number of times, and I think it's a kind of a split that they're concerned about paving next to the road, and they want to find an alternative route. I mean, I brought up those ideas. We just have to keep bringing them up, and I think there's multiple ways that we can go about it, and that definitely is one, because they're using it anyway.
It's being used, and it's more dangerous now. Having pavement there is not going to increase risk or danger in any way. So either we need to come up with a bridge over the on the back of the guard there, or pave that area, or both. But I thought that should be, because I did see people pushing wheelchairs down
Yeah,
there.
they
People
use it
trying
like-
to get to McDonald's, I presume, or someplace down there.
You can see where people use, and they typically go with the route that they feel most comfortable, so, they obviously are
There's
using
no
it.
way of getting there other
Yeah.
than crossing the road twice, which nobody wants to do. Mr. Anderson, do you have any?
Yeah, I want to have a discussion about the tennis court and the water line. I gave you guys a letter from Coleman Engineering. Wanted to clear up a couple of misconceptions about that line. One is the type of line. It's heavy duty, class 53, a concrete line. So it is a pretty stout ductile iron line. One of our recommendations through the engineers is that we do leave it in place, because if you pull it out, you're not going to get compaction. Exactly the same.
It was in your letter. I think we all agree with that.
Well, but you have a motion that we have to pull it out. And what I need to do is I'd like to move on, because we can cap that line a year from now or whatever, and take it out of service, but we want to leave it in place. We can fill it with a slurry fill for $1,000. That's the estimate now. So there's definitely ways that we can make sure and ensure that that's not going to collapse. But it's just that after looking at it, even if we don't think that line can make it, pulling it out now from a soils engineering standpoint probably would not be a good idea. You're not going to get compaction.
I read that too, Ray, and I should have thought about it at the time, but I gotta agree with you, or the Coleman Engineering on it. When they put Springview Drive in, they compacted all those laterals. 10 years later, I can go up there and show you where every lateral is except for one, where they've gone across the road. You can see the little crack.
You just can't get that. So
And they compacted it.
we got room outside the new courts that we'll
we
be able
have
to dig down, cut it, cap it, and do what we need to do. So if you could rescind that part of it, we just move on, and then we'll take care of that within the next year. You know, talking to Dave, we can reroute the line, that's not a big issue. We'll
But
probably
that
come
price
to-
of that pipe was expensive, correct?
That pipe?
That-
That's a main.
Yeah, that's,
a main.
yeah, I talked to David on that too, and he was telling me that
Yeah.
the structure of that, and
You know, I'm not totally crazy about having an operating water line under the tennis court. I mean, the original idea was to remove it, but, you know, you also didn't realize how, you know, it's a main. They put in a pretty heavy-duty pipe, so, I'm in favor, let's just move on. We drain it in the winter, you know, Dave will have them reroute that line, and we'll cap it, you know, within a year, we'll probably have that cap, so.
I'll make a motion, we rescind that and then leave the line there.
I'll support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
yes,
Just to carry on with that, though, I do appreciate everybody's interest in it, and you know, it helps us do our due diligence and looking at what we have. You know, a lot of times those guys have that information. It's not that they don't. It's in our position. We don't, you know, we don't follow it that closely, and so it wasn't a futile exercise. I mean, that was a good exercise to go through just for insurance purposes. The only other thing is, again, the baseball and softball teams, they had a fabulous year. You know, it was fun watching them from our distance here, and we just have good baseball in Norway, good baseball and softball.
And thanks in part to our complex out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was out there, what night was that, Scott? You were out there playing on Wednesday. I mean, both Little League fields are going, and soccer, just unbelievable how many cars and people are out.
people that come to our area that haven't seen it and they see everything going on, they're amazed. And
Yeah.
we have a beautiful complex out there.
Now, one of the other things that's going to happen with no additional cost to the project is that we actually have a new group that stepped up with the tennis courts, pickleball. I don't know if you're familiar with that. They're playing in the churches now, and they came up to me a few weeks ago and asked if they could add lines to the tennis courts. And, you know, at first it's like, okay, wait a minute, no, we're not going to, we worked hard to get the tennis courts. But actually, when I started looking into it, it's really a simple process to have the two. Met with a group last week, and they're going to actually donate to the project to cover some, you know, those funds. And anybody else who wants to donate to the project, we've got a plaque system going. We came up with, at the meeting, we came up with a $100 donation. We'll put your name on the plaque. And so, you know, I'm going to do it because I've worked so hard at trying to put this thing together that, you know, I'm going to donate that $100 and would encourage anybody else to, but they're going to do that, and they're going to help raise the funds to add it. What that'll do is it'll bring 30-plus people who, you know, out there at that pavilion to add to the activities. And I think that's going to be fantastic for showing that activity in our park. I really do. So,
Now, all we need out there is Frisbee golf.
Frisbee golf.
Bocce ball.
Bocce
There you go. Beach volleyball, that's what the kids at school said. That's what they like to see out there. That's all I have.
And I'd like to say, I forgot to say congratulations too to the baseball team, the softball teams, and to the past councils that saw fit to invest a lot of money in those complexes out there. Mr. Carlson, any comments?
Ever so briefly, folks, and I don't want to belabor it, but following up on all of your comments, you know, we had the pleasure of listening to Mr. Marvin Pollard last week talk about and remind us about the Golden Goose and our dam project. And you folks had a little bit of decisions to make again tonight, but you know, echoing back to Tricia's comments and some of the council's discussions about volunteers for this next week's project, you know, the Marion Park and Strawberry Lake and Knights Kingdom, those are some of the reasons why people come down to our community. It's a draw to this community as well. We have a wide range of folks within our community, and the people are what make our area and the city great. And that the festival that we have coming up next week, as Trish has mentioned, that group has been putting a lot of time and effort into it and needs volunteers. And as has been mentioned a number of different times, the focus is to have both to celebrate our 125-year anniversary and to celebrate our community, but also to try to help the Parks and Recs department to help fund these Marion Park, to help fund the Parks and Rec, look at Strawberry Lake and look at the Knights Kingdom that needs a refurbishment and some of these projects that continue to draw people into our community. and give both young and old folks a place to go and enjoy our community and the people around us. So again, I don't know when this will air necessarily, but I hope that, you know, the people are always stepping up to help to support the sports teams and support local businesses. The local businesses here have been great with helping the group that's running this festival, and have donated generously, as well as a lot of individuals. But there's many ways to help out, and volunteering is a great way to give back. And my understanding as well is, you know, if you're out there volunteering, you'll get a volunteer pass and you'll be able to listen to music. I know a lot of folks have been concerned about not having one-day passes, but volunteering allows you to help and also listen to the music. So it all goes to a good cause, and it's all helping to fund local parks and recreation and local groups that are assisting. So I think it's a great way, and as Marvin referenced, you know, we had our golden goose with the dam, but our Parks and Recreation Department here locally that the council in the past have funded and helped to promote with their vision, as Doc Hayes has referenced. This group's goal is to help make sure that these last well into the future. So on their behalf, I'd ask that, you know, people that are listening, think about it, contact Trish, and let's make this a success, because it is a reflection on the community. And if it looks good for Norway, then, you know, we all look good. And I think that this council's done a nice job of focusing on the future and the present. And this is another event that focuses both the now and into the future. So there's my 2 cents. Thank you.
And Trish never has anything to add. She's already added, so we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs.